Coming out. Good to see you all. My name's Troy. If I haven't met you yet, I'm one of the organizers of the Arizona Psychedelic Society, and we have a great guest tonight. We're going to be doing this one podcast style, so it's going to be a little back and forth. But please help me welcome Jessica up here to the stage. Come on up, Jessica. Jessica is a psychiatric nurse practitioner and also does some plant medicine and shamanic facilitation, some other things that we're going to talk about, get to know her a little bit better. Kind of talk a little bit about her journey, where she's come from, maybe a little bit more of what's happened recently that's a little alive for her, potentially, and then we're going to go from there. I think some of it will be very relevant to each one of us. I'm excited to hear what she has to share. I'm excited to ask her some questions. I hope you guys are as well too. If at any point during the talk you guys have a question, just get a hold of me or raise your hand or something. We'll do our best to keep it in the flow, but also don't always have to wait till the end if it's relevant to that conversation, like taking us too far off track, right? So with that, why don't we kind of ground in a little bit? If you guys all want to just find yourselves seated in your seats there, just comfortably. Just take a few deep breaths together. So just feel the seat beneath you, feel your feet on the floor. Just notice anything that's bouncing around in your awareness within you, whether it's a thought, emotion, feeling. Now let's just take a nice deep breath together, a nice deep inhale through the nose. Hold at the top for a little bit. And then relax, let that come out the mouth. One more nice deep breath in. And let that one go. And the last one, nice deep inhale. And relax. Okay, great. So we're all here, we're present, we're ready. So I think to begin, Jessica, we'd just like to hear a little bit more about you. I haven't got to meet you yet, so tell us whatever you think would be relevant for us to hear, and then we'll dive in from there.
Hi, thank you for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity to get to connect with all of you guys and share a little bit about my story. I am a psychiatric nurse practitioner. I am also a mother, daughter, sister, wife, and most importantly, a grandmother. Before I became many of those roles, I traveled a journey that was challenging, yet I didn't really understand what those challenges were until later in life. And with that, lots of struggles going through life, pregnant teen. Many times I was homeless, lots of bullying, lots of domestic violence, abuse, many challenges that helped create the space for me to provide care that was, more connected with the clients that I see today. I was able to walk my journey and really see how struggles can create that growth and strength within each individual, and so it helps me to relate a little bit better with my patients.
Beautiful. So we kind of talked about overcoming some hardships there. Maybe you want to dive into some of that, like what we don't have to get too deep into the hardship itself, right? I think we've all felt hardships and stuff, but I think some of what the work that probably a lot of us are doing has to deal with some either current hardship or possibly the effects of a hardship that happened a long time in the past that we're still carrying around, still dealing with the effects of it, still feeling it. So since you brought that up and may have some unique insights into that, or ways that you've navigated that, or things that have helped, or things that maybe you wouldn't repeat, that sort of thing, anything that comes to mind?
So with a lot of those hardships that I did face, as a young child, I was very outspoken, rambunctious, wild, free, jokester, And in my family, I didn't necessarily feel like I was connected. It was, again, little did I know that I was kind of isolated from the rest of them. But just to give a little backstory, I always say my mother and my sisters were always my biggest bullies, and that was really hard for me growing up. And with that, I didn't necessarily feel that sense of value, and like I was, had that sense of belonging. And so trying to navigate that with, again, as a young child and as a teen, going into the unhealthy relationships, thus the teen pregnancy. Taking a look back, I was able to kind of connect those dots and really see that it defined me as who I am today. Not that it defines me, but it kind of created who I am, a sense of self, right? I am stronger because of those challenges. I love myself because of what I learned through all that growth. And it wasn't always easy, and there's still moments where I have many doubts, and I will find myself preoccupied with some of the ego, the negative thoughts, the inner dialogue. And I know that deep within myself, I have that strength to overcome these challenges. Today, specifically, I was faced with something that was very hard for me. I wasn't even sure if I was going to show up today because I was very sad about this situation, and I knew that I had to come and connect and be with the people that are supportive, and that even if it's not something I'm sharing that will help you guys, that maybe something that you say to me will help me through this struggle. So again, it's really just knowing that there are going to be challenges, and no matter what they are, I have the strength to overcome them.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. Maybe later we can kind of dive into some of that strength, where that's come from. I know we talked about intuition and that kind of thing, and I think that we might weave that in here in a little bit. But I think we've all tried to tap into that at different points, right? Like try to find that inner source of strength, and I think, like you said, often that does come from some of our deepest, darkest moments, right? Sometimes it can be in this, normal consciousness that we're in now, and sometimes some of those challenges can be in altered states of consciousness too, right? I know some of us have had some interesting experiences out there in the ethers, and I think each experience shapes a little bit of us, some more than others, of course, but that's also a choice that we get to choose. So thanks for sharing all that. Kind of wanted to get a little bit more of your, just a brief history of like your life path, just people understand kind of where you've come from to getting, up here on stage sharing about this. So I know you kind of started off with a, psychiatric nurse practitioner. I'm sure that took a little bit of time. They don't just hand those out. And then there's kind of that, okay, great, you obtained that, then what? And then I think you took a fairly, you went and found some information, right? Played in the pool, and then decided that you maybe wanted to take a shift, and life was taking you in a new direction. You chose to take life in a new direction. I'd like to hear a little about that part of your journey.
So, with my career, I didn't know that I wanted to be a psychiatric nurse practitioner. I didn't even know that I wanted to be a nurse. I had my third child by the time I was 25, and I knew that I had to provide for my family. And I had gone to school. I was a phlebotomist, and that was easy money, something I could do. I loved connecting with the people. I've always loved psych and people, but I didn't really know that that's what I wanted to do. And so I worked at a hospital, and unfortunately I was bullied in the lab at the hospital, so much to the point where I was told I couldn't talk to people out in the parking lot. And that pushed me in a direction of, once I talked to the HR department, they quickly yanked me out of there and put me in a nurse extern program. And so that kind of moved me in a direction of pursuing my RN degree. And I worked in med surg for a couple of years, loved people, but knew that that's not where I wanted to be. And I thought I wanted to be a NICU nurse. And so I transitioned into postpartum. I went into the NICU and I realized that I talk way too much for those little babies. And so I decided to become a psych NP. And so I stayed in postpartum. I started to facilitate the postpartum mood disorder groups and just, tried to obtain some knowledge and experience from the space that I was in, because I had no psychiatric experience whatsoever. And again, just kind of focusing on providing for my family. I worked with the SMI population for a couple of years, and that was really hard. It was very rewarding, but very hard. SMI is where in the state of Arizona, you are certified as seriously mentally ill, so like schizophrenia, extreme bipolar, PTSD, OCD, stuff like that. I had quite a bit of deaths on my caseload in that 2 years. I would say 12 suicides, which was really hard for me. Again, I thought I was doing something wrong, and then I came to realize it wasn't what I was doing. But I knew I had to get out of that because it was really depleting me. And so I transitioned into general mental health. Again, I never thought I wanted to have my own private practice. I thought I was going to work for somebody. Just kind of got into the mode of continuing to work, going, day in, day out. And it was really hard. And I saw, be about 22 patients a day just pushing pills, giving medication. And I had this one patient that came into me, and she said, she was talking about her situation. She was going to move to another state, be with her son. And it was a lot of negative, like, I don't know why he's doing this, he shouldn't be doing this. And as I'm listening to her, I said, well, can we shift our focus? Can we really kind of look at the positives of what this experience is going to bring you? And she looked at me and she says, Jessica, isn't this about my meds? And I said, well, if you want to be well, it's not about your meds, and I had to learn that medication there's a time and there's a place for it, but really shifting that perspective and focusing on gratitude is very important. But all through that, I knew that it wasn't where I needed to be. It wasn't where I wanted to be. And so I decided to step out and start my own private practice. I did that in November of 2019. 2020 was actually pretty good for me. Not because of the pandemic though. It was pretty, just typical people, typical problems coming in. But still knowing that just the medication piece was not fulfilling me, and it really wasn't meeting their needs. And so I started to incorporate some of those shamanic practices, the energy work. I went on to get certified in comprehensive energy psychology. So I incorporate that into my practice, and seeing how working with the clients and using that energy and using their inner knowing creates so much more healing than just prescribing a medication. Because you can continue to come in and see me every month or every 3 months and get a med, but it doesn't change how you feel about yourself. It may numb that, right? But diving in deep and doing some of the, the energetic work, the shamanic work, connecting with that individual's inner knowing, it just creates so much more healing, and so much that people leave me, and I want them to leave me.
Nice. Sounds like quite the interesting journey that you went through there. And I'm guessing some of us, if not all of us, can either relate personally or probably know someone very close to us who's maybe had, less than desirable outcomes with pharmaceutical medications. I think that's pretty common these days. And not to try to demonize them, right? I do think I agree with you. I think in certain circumstances they are exactly what's called for and needed. In fact, if I'm getting my foot amputated, I want morphine. I don't want mushrooms. Sorry, guys. I don't feel that. So yeah, I get it. But I think also all of us in here probably agree with the flip side of that coin, which is it's not a panacea for everything. Like we've kind of sort of made it out to be, and not intentionally, but I think it's kind of become the de facto here, take a pill. And as you said, we know that's not always the right thing, the right fix. So kind of curious to dive into that a little bit more, perhaps a little bit more of, you talked about that you started incorporating that in your practice and kind of shifting gears, like why did you do that? Where did that come from? There's got to be some story there, I would imagine. My guess is that it probably started with your own journey sort of stuff, so maybe we can kind of double click on that for a sec.
Yeah, so for myself, I've always been drawn to more of that spiritual, energetic space. I'm originally from Portland, Oregon, so if you guys know about Portland, you kind of know the feel. And so coming out here, it was a lot different. I didn't feel that so much. I didn't feel as connected to it. And again, just kind of pushing through that journey of making sure that I could provide for my family. I always say I set my spirituality aside, my energetic space, because I had to focus on just the basic needs at a certain point. And so when I realized working and just seeing patient after patient and prescribing medication, I realized that I had lost that sense of self, that I was no longer connected to that energetic side that just feeds my soul. And so I returned back to, I went to Sweeha and I completed my shamanic Reiki master certification. I had done Reiki before, worked with energy, but this really it hit me different. Doing a lot of the shamanic work just created so much healing for myself with all of that history with my family and the traumas that I had experienced. It created a healing that I can't even describe. I have no anger, I have no sadness related to that past history. I see how it moved me in the direction of being here today and how important those steps were to get me to where I needed to be. But yeah, just incorporating that in my own life and my own practice, really just, being aware of my own energetic self and taking care of that is really kind of what pushed me to say, if this is helping me, then it's got to do something for somebody else. And really, I think when I started incorporating it was when I did the DSEP program, which is the Comprehensive Energy Psychology, and with that just created a whole nother realm of treatment that I didn't realize I could incorporate. And it's using the patient's inner knowing, the body, and then working with the chakras, the meridians, asking the body what it needs in that moment for its highest good. And that's when I saw that power of, and I don't want to say healing, but healing. People come in and they don't know what you're doing and they question it and they don't think it's going to work, but then they walk out and they come back the next time and they're like, I don't have that anxiety anymore. I don't experience this sadness or this grief or whatever it is that we're working on. And just seeing the power in that, I knew that this is the shift that I had to take.
Yeah, that's interesting. Maybe I'll see if there's any questions on that in the audience. If not, I can keep it rolling. Abby? Yeah?
Is a shamanic Reiki practitioner different than like a regular, or shamanic Reiki master different than a regular?
Like traditional Reiki?
Yeah.
So it's just some of the tools, the tools you can use, like using the drum, the rattle, doing shamanic journeys as opposed to just laying hands on and doing the energetic work.
Yeah, that's a good question. Fair question. And Andrea has another question.
Just because I remember reading it a little bit more, can you talk a little bit more about your culture, especially around shamanic practices, and how you bring that into your practice with your own indigenous cultures and lifeways?
Yeah, so I'm European, a lot of Polish, Finnish, and just trying to pull from those. That's more using the seasons, the Celtic wheel of life, incorporating the European medicine wheel, and really working with the moon, grandmother moon. I love the power that she offers us, and so I definitely use that with my clients. But again, with each individual, we're asking, when I'm working with someone, it's not necessarily what is from my background, but it is what their body and their being is saying that they need in that moment. So even if it's, if I go through the list of all the options that I have in my toolbox, if nothing's showing up, then we ask if it's within their toolbox, and then we go a little bit deeper and say, you know, what is this? What do you think you need? And it's pretty amazing how, again, that inner knowing, we connect with that, and it comes up when it needs to come up, and when we listen, then we really get that message of what it is needed in that moment to create that healing. I hope I answered that. Okay.
In your shamanic work, have you dealt with demonic possession and entities?
I have not. I have not ever experienced that. But in my energetic world, I really, I'm a firm believer that there is no positive or negative, that it's just higher and lower frequency. And so it's finding that balance with using those frequencies.
Yeah, so you know, you're talking about moving energy and, you know, healing with this modality. Are you using plant medicine or anything else? Is there anything else incorporated with that as far as like substance wise that goes into that type of thing, or is it just totally?
So since I accept all commercial insurance, I do not use plant medicine,
Okay.
but if my clients are coming in and they have used, then I am there to support them.
Got it.
Got to protect that license.
Absolutely.
Fair, very fair. I think there's one thing that I wanted to ask you. What were we talking about? Inner knowing, that's what it was. I think that's a really interesting topic because it's very, to me, you guys tell me if you disagree, but to me it's very in the face with Western traditional medicine, which says that I'm going to come to you, I'm paying you money, you're the doctor, you're the professional, you tell me what's wrong with me, you give me something to fix me, and it's a very baby bird sort of is kind of how I view it in my mind, of like, put the worm in my mouth, like I'm hungry, right? I have some need and you're here to fix it. And from what I heard you saying, that's different, right? It's almost flipping that on its head to say, I'm here to support you, I'm here to walk alongside you, I'm here to help ask you questions, maybe provide some facilitation or some energetic movement or whatever that is, but ultimately, a lot of times it sounds like you're leaning on the internal wisdom of the individual, and I think that's really interesting. One, because that's the approach that I take in the work that I do too, but I do it for the reason that it works, it seems to work, right? There seems to actually be something there, even when I'll just use me, let's say I'm the client in this case, might not cognitively, consciously know, right? You couldn't say, hey, what is it? Like, let me put it down into words and it'll make sense to your brain. But in that moment, there's some internal knowing of some kind that seems to highlight, like you said, what is needed, when it's needed, where it's needed, whatever. I mean, it's not always super specific, but I don't know. I think it's a unique thing that does happen sometimes in this world, but not always. There still tends to be a lot of that top-down kind of approach, even within the plant medicine, shamanic, shaman, guru sort of world. And I'm just curious to like poke at that more. Anything else you want to share about that, or any questions you guys have around that, or things you want to share? Maybe we'll let Jessica share first, then we'll come to you, Greg.
Yeah, so it's, I always, just chuckle a little when people come in and they start talking, and if you just ask a couple questions and then they're like, oh, now I get it, right? So they start to connect with that, but I think sometimes we're so preoccupied with what's going on in our head and again, the external stimuli and all the distractions of the world that really prevent us from connecting with that. But again, I also use my intuition in practice, you know, so if something is telling me like I need to do energy work with this person, then I will say let's do some energy work. If I need to pull cards, we're gonna pull cards. If it's medication or whatever, I will ask them, and you are right, they will come in and they will say, well, you're the provider, what should I do? And I say, well, you know you best, what should you do? You know, and so I always turn it back on them to really just to connect and to trust that sense of self, that knowledge that they have, because we are so separated from it that we dismiss it so easily, you know. And so when you see them, you know, have that dialogue with themselves and just talking out loud, and I'm that soundboard, right? They create that, like the connection of the dots, you know, then they can see that they do have that knowledge, right? That we all can connect with that if we just stop and pause and listen.
Just have a question, Dery?
I think you kind of answered it there. I understand what you're saying, but I'm having difficulty picturing what a session is like. And maybe you just start with it.
So a session, like with a client coming in, they'll come in, they'll kind of tell me what's going on. If they're on meds, we'll touch on it, and then it's really just based on what they bring up, right? You know, if they're talking about a problem, or they're struggling with, I don't know, their medication, and I'll, you know, just really kind of using the questions, motivational interviewing, right? Like just trying to guide them in figuring out what it is that they need. But again, like I said, I listen to my intuition, and then I will say, would you like to do this, right? You know, I'll offer it to them, and then they're always more than willing to engage. Does that make sense?
When you said cards,
Oh, like tarot,
tarot cards.
angel cards. I got my like 5 deck of cards that I put out, make them pick out when they come in, and draw a card when they leave. Do you want to do a session?
100%.
Gary's in, wonderful. Okay, I just think that's really cool. So maybe I'll ask one last question and then we can bounce on. But has there been anything? Does anything come to mind? Thinking about how you, your clients, us, others could better tap into that intuition that you're talking about, that internal guidance, that wisdom, anything that you found that, hey, this has helped me, I've seen this help my clients, or conversely, here's some red flags. I've seen when people do X, Y, and Z, their intuition is totally turned off, or because we talked about some of the distractions and how we're disconnected from that one. I think maybe those are two different conversations that I want to click on separately, but I'm interested in both of those, so I'll let you take whichever one you want.
Yeah, I think we all know what a lot of those distractions are. Definitely electronics and social media. People get lost in that world, and it's really kind of sad. Being from that generation where I didn't have that, and I still struggle with it, so I don't necessarily care to be on it unless I'm doing some kind of post to her. She's my only follower, friend. But just really, you know, disconnecting from our bodies, from our minds, from Mother Earth, you know, and being preoccupied with the day in, the day out, the jobs, you know, these things are all temporary, you know, and so it's, I know there's an importance there, and we need to have, you know, that stability, that income, but I think, you know, just when we lose sight of why we're here, and we get so involved in those distractions that it makes it harder to connect. Some of the tools to connect, you know, just really like sitting with gratitude, just sitting with nature, you know, the simple thing of just pausing and letting go of any judgments of what comes up, you know, maybe just listening and being curious about what is entering that mind space, and a lot of grounding. I love, doing, guided meditations and grounding work. That's my favorite. Being outside. I used to be that one person that was always like, I can't shut this off, right? But again, doing a lot of self-Reiki and shamanic journeys and just being mindful, not mindless, but mindful, I found that I was really able to calm this down. And so then that opened up that space for me to really listen in my practice with my patients. Trust me, there's often times where I get distracted and it is preoccupied with all the things that are going on in the world in my life. But then I have to check myself and say, okay, can't worry about that. We don't need that. It's extra clutter up there that we don't need to have, And so it's the simple tools that everybody says they can't do, but if you do it, again, it's a practice. It's not perfection, and we're always just looking for progress. And so even if you sit for 30 seconds of just being mindful, that's eventually going to lead to 45, and then eventually a minute, and then you're going to be pretty amazed with yourself.
What's that saying? If you can't meditate for 15 minutes a day, it means you need to meditate for an hour or something like that? Because it is, right? It's a practice, right? There's no, I talk to my clients about that too. It's you can't really do it wrong as long as you're attempting it, as long as you're trying. But I like that. I like the not perfection but progress. I think that's a good watermark for us to shoot at and give ourselves some grace too, right? We're all trying. Hopefully, we're all trying. We're all here, right? And for me, I'll say, I don't know about you guys, but intuition isn't always like spelled out in bright neon colors across the sky. It's super obvious. Sometimes a little bit I don't know. I think I felt a little twitch in my stomach or something, but maybe I'm just hungry. I don't know. Sometimes it's more obvious, but sometimes it's subtle, right? And often I think it's fairly subtle, and so that's kind of what you're alluding to, is where we do have to get kind of quiet with ourselves in order to be able to hear that, small inner voice or whatever it is. If there's a lot of loud distractions going on, or we've got, 10,000 things in our mind, it's probably just going to in and out and, on to the next thing. So I think there's a lot of wisdom in that, of just that slowing down, grounding, connecting, taking some deep breaths, doing some energy work, kind of getting the mind and body aligned so that we can, hopefully tap into that, whatever that is inside. Cool. All right. How do you feel about talking about what happened today? Feel like diving into that at all?
I can talk about it, yeah.
Yeah? Just because I think that kind of feels like that's kind of where we're at in your story, right? Okay, so, introduce yourself, you went down this path of going the medical route, found some success there, but then decided, okay, I want to start bringing in some more of this, maybe more of this other additional practices, and then you kind of founding something and moving in a direction, following your intuition, all that stuff, and then today happened.
Oh, yes, it did.
So.
Yeah, and there's actually a lot to say about that, so get ready. So I working in my practice, right, trying to help people, doing the best that I can, but feeling like I'm not necessarily doing all that I can. And I know somebody that had a behavioral health residential facility, and I saw that this person was able to do this. And I thought, if this person can do this, I can do this too, and it looked appealing. It looked great. It looked like a space where I could, with the umbrella of commercial insurance or insurance in general, right? There's so many restrictions as a provider. And so in this type of facility, it would be something where they would pay, but I could offer whatever services and whatever treatment that I wanted to, right? As long as I was meeting their basic needs, or not their basic needs, the basic requirements of the insurance companies. And so this journey began in maybe the end of 2022, where I started looking for a home, which there was a lot of hoops that I had to jump through to find the perfect place. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that process. Most people are not, but to have a residential facility, you have to be like in Pinal County, 1,250 feet away from another facility. And if you guys are not aware, there are many facilities out there, so it's really hard to find a space that is within that range, right? And so barriers, right? Like I couldn't find the house. It had to be the right number for me to be able to purchase it as a commercial location. And connecting with my intuition, I was getting so frustrated, so overwhelmed again with the outside noise, the chaos of everything that was going on, that I sat in front of my altar and I was like, okay, I just need to be silent. I just need to sit and get some guidance. And so in this process, I'm sitting and I'm just quieting my mind, and I keep hearing Dina. And I was like, okay, my older sister's Dina. And so I was like, maybe Sister Dina needs to be involved, right? And so I reach out to her and I'm like, hey, you know, if I get this up and running, do you want to be a part of this? And she's like, 100%, I'll support you, right? And so I'm looking in her area, West Valley, still barriers, you know, nothing coming up, nothing in the East Valley, nothing in Phoenix, nowhere, right? And I stopped for a minute. I was like, you know what? I need to still look in the East Valley. And so I am looking at homes that are for sale, and the house on Dina Drive pops up. It's a 4-bed, 3-bath, and I was like, well, maybe it wasn't Sister Dina, maybe it was Dina Drive. And so
it was literally right in the
it
sky.
was. And I just want you guys to know, like, I never thought I would be able to connect with my intuition like I do now. Like, past me would have never thought that I'd be where I'm at today, you know, and I think that's really important, because past me was like, I wish I could, you know, but again, doing the work, it brings me here. But, so anyways, we purchased Dina Drive, the house on Dina Drive, and they are selling it as a 4-bed, 3-bath, and it's actually a 5-bedroom, 3-bath, which was perfect, because then we had an office space. So get it up, get it running, go through all the hoops of getting it licensed with the state, which there was delays there, you know, and they kept saying I was falling through the cracks. Maybe that was my first sign, I don't know, but finally get licensed November of 2023. And during that process, I don't know if you guys are aware, but Access placed a moratorium, and so they were no longer accepting new providers, which that was kind of the easy way to get up and running. They really don't have a lot of requirements. And so I was like, okay, like the moratorium's in place. I applied, they denied me, I appealed, I tried to fight it. I was like, if I am a psychiatric nurse practitioner, like, and I don't know if you guys are aware, but there was a lot of fraud going on, and so they were shutting down a lot of places. And so I was like, okay, I'm a good quality provider, you know, they should want me, right? And they did not. But I shifted, and so I got credentialed with 2 commercial insurances and got those, and I have been marketing myself. I have been going to hospitals. I've been on every Facebook page, group, I don't know what they're called. I connected with Andrea and the Medicine Way with creating the space. So I'm just moving along, trying to create these connections, get the word out there. I wrote a curriculum for it, and I'm just like pushing. I've got staff and just really like passionate about this, sitting at the house and like, you are ready for people, right? And I get a call today, and it's a surveyor out at my house, out of the Dina house, and I was like, okay, I'll be there, annual inspection, no big deal. And she comes in and she's like, well, you haven't had any clients for a year. And I was like, correct, it's been a challenge. And I was like, I've tried, I've been working so hard. You know, I still have scheduled appointments for hospitals and stuff like that. And so today she tells me, she says, you have to either voluntarily surrender your license or we will revoke it and we will give you a fine. And this was really hard for me because I put so much work and so much love and so much time and so much effort into this, and I was so passionate about helping people that it was really hard for me to have somebody come and take that away. But I've cried the majority of the day, so I won't be too tearful here. But it was really hard, and I almost didn't come because I didn't know if I could sit in this space and have any kind of conversation. I just wanted to curl up in bed and go to sleep. And mind you, my bedtime's at 8. But everybody around me was like, maybe you should go. Maybe you should go. Maybe you should go. And I was like, we're just gonna do this. And so I made her come with me as my moral support, and here we are. And I'm really just trying to sit with this, and I don't know the answers. I don't know where it's gonna take me. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't know if you guys know, but the market's not good for selling a house. So I have an empty house that's sitting there fully furnished, and I got to figure out what to do with all of that. But I'm trying to take this as I was sitting at that table, and she was telling me this, I was like, maybe I need her to tell me this, because I keep extending my deadline of when I'm gonna no longer be pursuing this. So it was June, it was December, it was gonna be February, and today she made that decision for me. So again, just trying to listen and sit with that, even though I was feeling that sadness, that frustration, feeling overwhelmed. I just, in that moment, I really heard, like, I think she had to do this for you to be able to walk away, because I don't know if I would have.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for sharing that. I know it's a very recent and personal story, so appreciate you being here and opening up like that. Sorry to hear that. Maybe not. We'll find out in like 6 to 12 months probably. But I do think that's an interesting thing, right? We've been talking a lot about intuition tonight, feeling into that, But what happens when our intuition doesn't align with our mental goals or desires? To say, hey, I'm running in this direction. Remember, we just spent 12 months building a canoe. We were going to go down this river, and your intuition's like, now we're going to go down this creek. And you're like, nah, I don't want to do that. like, how do we, what do we do in those situations? I don't know. Do you have any? I mean, I know it's very new, but I'm sure this is not the first time intuition and logical reasoning have maybe not always aligned up. So I'm just curious if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's logical reasoning or logic, period. I think it's a lot of ego. But I think for myself, it's just really, again, I am all about like universe guiding me where I need to go, even if I don't think it's where I want to go, or if I even know about it. And so I just really kind of, in situations like this, I just sit. I really just kind of sit. I will pull out my cards. Not always are they accurate, because I really thought this was going to be something. But again, I think maybe it's going to be something that is different, but I still get to help, and maybe it's just in a different way than what I thought it would be. And there's a lot of work that goes into a facility like that, and there's been many times where I'm like, is this really what I want to do? And I've questioned it. Maybe that was my sign, but again, I don't always listen, and so I was really passionate, and so I think it was more ego than anything, and I don't always know what to do with that, and sometimes reality has to give it a big old check.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, to me, that parallels like a lot of what we end up doing in the plant medicine space, right? In journeys, right? We talk about intention setting, right? That's a big part of it. And to me, the big difference, you just kind of highlighted there, right? In one sense, sometimes we have, okay, I want to listen to my intuition, but we have some expectation around it, right? And if that expectation is not met, then we have, all kinds of opportunities for the kinds of feelings that we don't want. Same thing can happen in the psychedelic and plant medicine space. We all know that, right? When we're preparing for it, we're talking about an intention, and an intention we want to kind of divorce that from any specific outcome, right? I'm going into this with this intention, but it might be fulfilled. In fact, there's a very high likelihood of degree of chance that if it is going to be fulfilled, it's going to be done differently than how we expected, right? At least that's been my experience in my own life and lots of others. So I think that's a great just point to highlight that we all, if we decide to embark on that sort of journey, that kind of comes with the stakes that we have to be willing to come with an intention and an energy that we still have to. There's a lot of effort that's still done on our part, right? And also we have to be able to like release our hands from the wheel, or at least not grip it so tight, potentially too. I think so. Also want to kind of shift a little bit. Maybe I know you've done some training and whatnot in more plant medicine, psychedelic sort of stuff. How that's incorporating into your world these days. Any thoughts you have around that, and then maybe kind of talk a little bit about whatever you want to on that, and then we can maybe wrap it up with like integration, because I know that's a big part of your world and desires and ours as well. So maybe we can have some conversation on that.
Yeah, so currently I'm in the IPI program for psychedelic assisted therapy, and in April of next year I will be certified for MDMA, psilocybin, and ketamine assisted therapy. And so going into this, it was really, I wanted to be, one, ahead of the game before anything became legal. Two, I wanted to know what my patients were doing. And three, I wanted to know what I was doing. So with that, I kind of go back and forth, right? Because I know that we can do the work if we take the time and we can dive in, we can get the answers, we can have that insight, we can have those experiences. And I think that just comes from doing a lot of that shamanic work previously for my own healing. Knowing that the wisdom that I gained in that was so meaningful and so powerful. But I also know that plant medicine really allows us to dive in a little bit deeper and a little bit quicker, because it shuts off that default mode network, so it calms that down so we don't have to work so hard. I've always had a bad taste for ketamine, kind of learning to love it now. I just have a really hard time. I know a lot of people that have own clinics out there, and unfortunately there's not a lot of the therapy that goes with it. There's a lot of just, pushing the IV drips and getting them in, getting them out, and I feel like it's a big cash cow, so I'm sorry if I'm offending anyone. But I really think that integration and that therapy piece is so important, and the research even shows, it's not necessarily the medicine, it is that integration, because what are we doing with that experience? The experience that we have, we can take it or leave it if we don't integrate it, and we're not really learning the lessons that we need if we don't take the time to sit and really kind of pick it apart and see how does this pertain to my life? How do I incorporate this into my daily practice of life? And so it's very interesting. I have not gotten to MDMA yet, but it's I think it's important, because there's so many people out there that, with the availability of plant medicine out there now, people are coming in, they're stopping their meds, they're microdosing, they're having these experiences, and they don't necessarily know what they're doing with it, how they're taking it, and if it's safe or not. So the program has been great because it really touches a lot on safety and making sure that the patient is safe, and again, if we're not integrating, how safe are we being?
Yeah, I think sometimes we think about safety just as like contraindications, right, or physical safety or something of that nature, and certainly that's something that we need to be considered. You know, there are contraindication stuff out there with pharmaceutical medications or certain you know, issues that people have or whatever it is, but you know, also there's that like mental, emotional safety too, right? Feeling safe within ourselves. I think that's a huge, at least for me, I would say for me and the people I know that have done plant medicine journeys, a big part of it is, you know, do you feel safe? Do you feel safe within your own body? Do you feel safe in the setting that you're in or the person who you're with, right? That you can go into that altered state and still be open enough to, you know, receive some of what's there or to meet it at least, right? So I think I'm really happy to hear that. Maybe, I do have one, this question just keeps like pinging in my brain, so I'll just ask it to get it out, to itch it, but don't want to take us too off topic. But you mentioned, and I know you've come from kind of the medical world, you got the medical background, that kind of thing, and then also now kind of putting your foot in another world a little bit too and seeing, you know, some crossovers there, and I'm sure a lot of unique differences too in approaches and styles and outcomes and all of that. But yeah, curious if there's any interesting correlations you've drawn between the two, any things that maybe someone from the outside wouldn't necessarily know about that. And then conversely, like, how do you feel our general, our general medical system is at sort of supporting the average individual that may want to or already have or is using plant medicines in their day-to-day life in some capacity, and then they're going to, like, you know, most people would go to some Western medical doctor and they may or may not talk to them about that. The doctor may or may not be informed about that. The doctor may think that they're informed and actually be wildly uninformed, or a wide variety of other things. So just curious if you have any unique insights into that.
Yeah, I don't know if any of it's unique, but I think a lot of people know that with Western medicine, we really kind of band-aid the symptoms. We don't get to the root cause. And with that being said, there's a lot of providers out there that don't want to dive in deep. And I do appreciate, you know, Western medicine. Like you said, if you're getting your leg amputated, you want morphine. I agree. But if we're not looking at the root cause, then we're missing so many pieces. If we're not looking at the mind, body, and spirit, then we're missing so many pieces, and we're not really creating this healing that we need to create, and I think that we're really missing. We're so disconnected now, again, from our bodies, from our communities, from, you know, from nature, you know, from everything, and I don't know when that will all come together. Western, plant medicine, spirit, truly holistic. You know, I just hope that I can do my piece and create some kind of ripple effect, you know, maybe plant some seeds. And I don't know if a lot of Western medicine providers actually support. There's a lot of providers, you know, that I know that are interested but don't care enough to dive in any deeper, to get any more education, you know, because again, it's harder, but it's easier to just prescribe a med, you know, to see somebody for 15 minutes and say, here, you got high blood pressure, take this. You have diabetes, take this. You have depression, take this. You have anxiety, take this. You know, so it makes money. And I think that's probably the biggest disconnect, right? Is where the money is the center of, you know, the focus, and so not really creating that space for healing and really connecting with people. But I mean, nothing that I've really seen that's not already known.
One more question, then I'll kind of open up to the group. But sounds like you've done some studying and preparing yourself for psychedelic assisted therapy. A couple of different psychedelics you mentioned there, psilocybin and ketamine. Like how realistic do you think that, like, because obviously we just had the news about MAPS and the FDA a couple months ago. I'm sure you're familiar with that, and So any thoughts on that, or kind of like the, where do we go from here sort of thing as someone from your purview? Should we, is that even the right model to make that, in your opinion, do you want to see that legally accessible? Or are you more on the decrim side, or are you more on the, hey, it just belongs completely outside of controlled and regulated society, it should be an individual person's decision? And then how do you think that fits into our current model of medicine and society and where we're at, and where would you like to see it head, I guess, maybe?
Yeah, it's such a gray area, right? I would love to see all of these tools accessible for everyone, but then there's also really the safety of it. I have heard of many, unfortunately, providers that take advantage of clients, in an altered state, which is not appropriate, and completely unethical. And I don't know if we can stop that. And so I think there's a piece of that where how do we monitor that safety? How do we make sure that that patient, that client, the person who is experiencing, how do we know that they are going to be in a safe space? And how do we regulate that? I don't know what that looks like. I think we're a ways away from seeing it fully in play, because I think there are these pieces that need to be addressed before it is, out there and available for everyone. But I think that it's important that there is the knowledge and the education, because people are using whether or not we're prescribing, right? They get their hands on it, and so it's really important to make sure that they're aware of the safety risks, and taking advantage of the knowledge, and the support of a provider, I think is better than not having anybody on your side.
One more question, and then I'll put it up to the group. Do you still have any connections with Portland? People you know back there?
Oh, my whole family's back.
Okay. That had to prelude this next question. So, what's the pulse from Oregon's recent very liberal decision to I'm sure I would assume everyone here knows, but they kind of were like, hey, you can do whatever you want. I mean, more or less, not exactly, but almost. How's that on the ground? How's that going?
Have you been to Portland recently? No?
Yeah, I've heard stories.
So, has anybody been to Portland recently? Last couple of years? Yeah? Have you guys seen how it is? You've seen it? Yeah, it's sad. It's very unfortunate. It used to be a place where, as a teenager, I would skip school and go smoke pot and go downtown Portland and hang out and people watch. I don't feel safe doing that. I don't feel safe being downtown. Downtown Portland's not even downtown Portland anymore. It's really kind of, unfortunately, there's a lot of homeless. And I have a nephew who is SMI. He has schizophrenia and has significant substance use history. And they take him in, they release him, they take him in, they release him. I think it's you either go to sober or detox, or you get a ticket. And if you don't have the money to pay the ticket, who cares? And eventually, if you get a roof over your head and 3 square meals, then you're okay. I don't think it's been a good thing. With this program, I will go and experience their whole program with the psilocybin, so I'm interested to see how that is. I do that in February, so that'll be interesting to see how they've really kind of taken, that legalization and implemented it into patient care. So I will get to partake in that and have some more information when I come back.
Come back and share with us.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks, Jessica. Appreciate it. Let's give her a big round of applause, everyone. Any questions anyone's got for Jessica? Hector.
Where did you get your Reiki education?
Reiki, I had done Reiki before, so just like traditional Reiki, but I completed a holistic nutrition program through SWIHA, Southwest Institute of Healing Arts in Tempe, And they say once you're a student, you're always a student, and I will 100% promote them. I think everybody should take a course there because they are absolutely amazing. The energy there, you don't ever want to leave. You actually want to live there. But they they have the shamanic Reiki, they have shamanic principles and practices, they have the medicine wheel course, lots of really fun, exciting courses there.
And what's it called again?
SWIHA, Southwest Institute of Healing Arts.
Sweetheart.
Yeah, McClintock and Southern. Yeah.
And how did you use Reiki on yourself to heal?
Just like that.
Okay.
So, have you ever experienced Reiki?
I never experienced Reiki per se, but I used to do healing hands.
Oh, similar.
It's not. I did healing hands based on other principles. Like the same principle was
Okay.
taught through Buddhism.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, really like moving energy, right? Being a conduit for universal, unconditional love, that high frequency, right? That source, like using the hands as that source to bring the Reiki into the client is, I mean, however you're doing it, it is all magical and very helpful and healing for both the practitioner and the patient.
What kind of CPT and ICD-9 codes do you use for billing for like Reiki, or like how do you able to bill insurance?
What do you mean, how do I bill insurance? So I just use, because I see a lot of people on medication, and so I use add-on codes. I don't know what it is, 90836 or something like that. Just therapy, but I use the comprehensive energy psychology because that gives me a big umbrella that I can incorporate a lot of things under. I'm a member of ASEP, the Association of Comprehensive Energy Psychology, so I have them, kind of there is a big support and a lot of evidence to support the practices. So I just throw it in my notes, right? Or guided meditation, or, however I have to make it work to get it paid for.
There's a code for guided meditation.
No, it's really like just my supportive therapy.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Creative.
Yes. Yes.
So, what happened was that you lost your license for the residential.
Yes, I did not lose my nurse practitioner license.
So,
Yeah.
I'm just curious, could you just, instead of doing a residential program, turn it into like some other healing house where you have some services that you charge insurance and then some more open insurance, more open practices. It just seems like the residential program would be more limited, wider.
Well, with the residential, they give you a per diem rate, right? And so that covers an hour of therapy a week, 3 hours of group a day, and then anything else I want to do. So if I'm there and I'm working with the clients, I'm getting this daily rate for them, but they're not like nitpicking what I'm offering, right? So I can focus on nutrition. I can bring in a lot of, those extra modalities that they don't have access to. But shifting it, so I think I would still have to be licensed with the state somehow,
Did you hold a license?
No, they took my license.
So the facility would have to be licensed?
The facility would have to be licensed, yes. I believe. If I was practicing something in there, I don't know. I really don't know that answer.
I think.
I was just gonna add to that, and ask if you've ever hosted rooms and retreats with Vada, hosted rooms and retreats, and I'm on that.
I have thought of it, but my energy was all in this house. So I have not done anything except for focus on that little baby out there in Santan Valley that we now are just gonna fill it with love with somebody else's family.
That was very, very impressive.
You should have seen me on the drive here. You can ask her. I was like, I can't do this. I don't know. But thank you. Like I said, I think I knew that it's what needed to happen. You know, it was just sad, and I wanted to make that decision. I didn't want somebody else making it for me.
First, I want to echo what Gary said. So I really appreciate your story and you being here. And this may be a complex question, but I don't know if you've got like a quick or like kind of like a high level answer. But go back to Portland. What you were saying about Portland. Do you think part of the reason why it became what it was with like especially with the regulations that they tried to implement, or I guess they took away, was it something about the way that it was done, or do you think that there was already this certain energy in the area and there was a kind of like a perfect storm in a bad way for it to kind of go downhill the way it did, or do you think that it attracted the kind of people that would be attracted to something like that, or do you think it was just we're a long way off before anything like that?
I think it was probably a little bit of everything. You know, I think prior to the legalization, they were already really struggling with a lot of homelessness. And so I don't know why. It's cold, it's wet. So, but they do have a lot of freedom, the homeless out there. Like, I was amazed at how many homes were built off the side of the freeway. Downtown and on the sidewalks. Like, you're looking at plywood homes as you go through town, and so I don't know. I just know it's really sad. It's not as beautiful as what it used to be.
Yeah, and I was out in Denver around the time when weed first became legal, like recreationally legal, the first city really in the U.S. And for the first couple of years, it was really, I found it to be like kind of dark out there in a lot of ways, because you just got a lot of people that went there because weed was legal, and there was just very much that culture. But now that weed is legal, a lot of places it's just a lot of places it's just oh, some people smoke weed, some people don't. You know, it's not as much of a thing, and I wonder if there's a certain energy or like a certain kind of like magnetism of that kind of thing, which made it a little bit more difficult.
What's the saying about Portland? Keep it weird, right? It's weird.
Well, it's the only place, and that's the thing. Like, it's
Yeah.
a magnet, and then
Yeah.
they did it all wrong. There's not
Oh, 100%.
there's not things in place to help these people or to educate people, and you can't just say, "Oh, have at it," and not give any support. That's the total wrong way to do it, and especially if you only do it in one spot. Maybe legalize. You could legalize all drugs everywhere in America,
Right.
and it'd be way better than that.
Yeah.
For sure. Outcomes would be so much better. But
Yeah, with my nephew, he was using and again has the diagnosis of schizophrenia, and was in the state hospital, released, placed in a hotel room and he's on the spectrum, and he's so loving and caring, and so he brings people in and wants them to be off of the streets too, and nobody was checking in on him, and he had a probation officer and nobody was drug screening him, so he's just doing all the drugs and bringing in everybody into his hotel room, and then he goes back into jail because, I don't know, he's riding the light rail without a ticket or something. But there's a lot of missing pieces, again, a lot of gaps. Out here, with the SMI population, like, you get a case manager and they are doing home visits, they're checking in on you, they're making sure that they get you housing if you don't have housing, they're making sure you have the basic needs, and they made sure he had a roof over his head, but that was about it. And that was only temporary. So. Did you have a question?
You said you were working on another program or course currently. I was wondering what that was.
So for the house, I wrote a curriculum that takes wisdom from the Native American medicine wheel and the Celtic wheel of life. And so just incorporating those two together, working on mind, body, and spirit, and really making sure that, that we do focus on those key components, because at that space, in that space, they were gonna be doing lots of groups. And so they would have staff there, if they struggled with an experience, we could really sit with them and continue to integrate and help them navigate those challenges. What I do with that now, I don't know. It's still in a raw form because I was going to transform it as I went, and I will continue to do so. I just don't know where that's going to be and how it's going to look.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask about the intuition piece. Do you feel that when you were doing your own healing, did you really start to be able to develop that intuition, or do you feel like that was always there? And I'm wondering too that if you, or maybe with your clients now, you're able to see it in them even maybe more easily, and that's kind of helping you develop your own intuition as well.
Yeah, so looking back, I realized I was more connected with my intuition than what I knew, right? Because I was so distracted by, 1, growing up, 2, the struggles that I faced, 3, trying to just be a young adult and figuring out who I am. But when I look back at things and I'm like, oh, like I knew that, just the way it kind of guided me, and listening to this inner voice. And again, it's not always a voice, right? It can be a physical feeling, it could be just a pull in a direction, or whatever that is for each individual. But again, past me didn't know that that's what that was, and until I started working on it, and then I was able to look back and really kind of say, oh, like I see how that played. I listened to it. Did it always move me in the right direction? I think so, because I'm here today. But working with my clients, again, I think, it's practice makes progress, right? Like it's never going to be perfect. I think the biggest key is letting go of that judgment, right? If I hear something, if I feel something, when I'm working with my clients, I will ask, like, is this for me or is this for them? And if it keeps coming up, I think it's for them. It's not for me, right? And again, letting go of that ego, right? Because not always do I sense that. And I don't think I'm psychic. I think we're all psychic. I think we all have that inner knowing, right? That intuition that gives us that information. But just really listening, sitting with it without judgment. And do I see it in the patients? Sometimes, right? But I just love to watch them kind of navigate that themselves. And like I said, they'll be in the office and they'll be chatting and talking and trying to discuss a situation. And then as soon as they get it, they're like, oh, and I say, see, you don't need me, unfortunately. but it's just a practice, and being with it for what it is, and maybe it's not there for a time, and being okay with that too, letting go of what it should or should not be, the expectations, right?
Great, I think we'll wrap it up there. I'll just add too with the intuition thing, just something that I've done in my own life, is, especially when I was trying to lean more into that, as I have been trying to lean more into that in the last several years, is practicing it in areas where it's like low risk or no risk. So for example, like maybe I'll get intuition sort of tugging, right, or something that says, hey, go check the mailbox, right? And like, that's, I don't have to listen to that. I could go check the mailbox tomorrow or whatever, but it's like, let me test that, right? Like there's no, like if I go down, I'm pretty sure I can make it to the mailbox without anything catastrophic happening. So like, but then you start to learn what that feels like and what you can and can't trust. It's almost like building a relationship with yourself in some ways, I would say. And the more I've done that, not the louder it's gotten, but the better I've gotten at hearing it, maybe, or something like that, I would say.
I will tell my clients to write things down, right? Like if you think about somebody and they text or call, right? Jot that down, right? Because we don't trust ourselves. And so it's so important to see that I can connect with that, and I can have that sense, and I can follow that sense, and something will come of that.
Cool. All right, let's give Jessica another big round of applause. Thank you for being here. Are there any other events coming up that we want? Is there any of the? Yeah, thank you.
Yes, tomorrow night we have our APS Ally Recovery Group tomorrow night at the Powell Rec Center at 6 o'clock. And then we also have a talking circle on Wednesday night at the Powell Rec Center at 6 o'clock.
Cool.
And, yeah, what else do we have?
We've got an events committee meeting coming up, so we're going to be putting together some more stuff, like maybe a holiday party and stuff. But just keep your eyes on Meetup and whatever for new events and donation up here. More information. Thank you all for coming out.
Woo!
Good night, everyone.
Yeah.